Hi, welcome to my channel. It's His Transform here again. In the last few videos, we've been talking a lot about Exynos 2600 and how Samsung finally fixed one of its biggest problems, overheating. And the big reason for that improvement is something called HPB, or Heat Pass Block. Now here's the crazy part. New info coming from fixed focus digital cameras is hinting that Qualcomm is about to copy the same idea for the Snapdragon 8 Gen 6 and Gen 6 Pro. Yes, the same cooling trick Samsung used first. Let's slow this down and explain it in a very simple way. Modern phone chips are getting insanely fast. Clock speeds are going up, graphics are getting crazier, and phones are still very thin. That's a big problem because heat has nowhere to go. With the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5, Qualcomm already pushed things really hard. High clock speeds, big performance numbers, but phones started hitting the limit of normal cooling. Vapor chambers, graphite sheets, they're helping, but they're starting to struggle, so Qualcomm needs something better. This is where Heat Pass Block comes in. Samsung already uses HPB on Exynos 2600 and it works really well. Simple explanation, HPB is a copper heat plate. It sits directly on the chip, heat moves out faster, less heat gets trapped. Samsung says this improves heat control by about 16%. That's a big deal. Older chip designs did something very stupid. They stacked the RAM chip directly on top of the processor. So what happens? The chip gets hot. The heat has nowhere to escape. Everything turns into a heat sandwich. That's why phones slow down after a few minutes of gaming. With HPB, things change. The processor gets space to breathe, heat spreads faster, and the phone stays cooler for longer. This is why Exynos 2600 is way more stable under load. Now, according to the leak, Qualcomm is bringing HPB to Snapdragon 8 Gen 6 and Gen 6 Pro, and honestly, they kind of have to. Why? Because Qualcomm is testing 5 GHz clock speeds. Yes, 5 GHz. That is laptop level speed in a phone. Without serious cooling, that's impossible. Sure, TSMC's 2nm process helps, smaller transistors equals better efficiency, but that alone is not enough when you push clocks this hard. At some point, physics says nope, so better cooling becomes mandatory, not optional. Now imagine this, Snapdragon 8 Gen 6, 5 GHz performance cores, HPB cooling, better heat control. What does that mean for gamers? This means emulation goes crazy good. Games like God of War Ragnarok, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Need for Speed, heavy AAA console games. They should run way smoother and for longer periods. No sudden FPS drops, no phone turning into a frying pan. Just smooth performance, like butter. This also fixes one of the biggest complaints about Snapdragon 8 Gen 5. Yes, it beats Apple's A19 Pro in Geekbench, but it uses way more power to do it, around 60% more. That means more heat, and that's not sustainable long term. With Snapdragon 8 Gen 6, Qualcomm will likely push power again, but this time with HPB helping manage the heat, things should be more balanced. Honestly, this is something Qualcomm should have done earlier, but better late than never. And let's be real for a second. It's kind of funny. Samsung got clowned for years over Exynos heating issues. Now, Samsung fixes the problem, invents a solid cooling solution, and Qualcomm follows the same path. That's a quiet win for Samsung. If this leak turns out to be true, then 2026 flagship phones are going to be monsters. Exynos 2600 with HPB, Snapdragon 8 Gen 6 with HPB. Better performance, better stability, less overheating. Finally. So yeah, keep an eye on this, because cooling is now the real battlefield in smartphone chips. Speed is easy. Controlling heat, that's where the real engineering is happening now. And this time, Samsung might have led the way.